I'm going to be in a battle with Lyndon Johnson in this race. There's no question in my mind that this is going to be the issue. It'll be the same issue that it's always been. Those people that would look to Washington and those people that look to Alabama. I will look to Alabama because I see a more Americanism in the state of Alabama than I see in Washington, and that's when I want to stand on the side of the people in Alabama. Well, I know that I, as an individual, cannot reverse the trend our country is taking. I sincerely believe that the principles upon which I stand can. I believe the people of Alabama want a return to local self-government. With these ideals uppermost in my mind, I have this day decided to seek the Republican nomination to the United States Senate. My campaign will be based upon a dedication to God, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and America. I am dedicating myself to do everything in my power as a candidate to unite the people of Alabama in this cause and carry them to victory in November. I made every effort to get Jim Martin to run for the Senate. I think the people of Alabama want Jim Martin to run for the Senate. I think the people of Alabama wanted Jim Martin to run for the Senate in 1966. I think they told us in 1966. I feel the same way this year. I've spoken to Jim. I think Jim is a great candidate. I want him to run, but I'm in this race, and I'm in this race to win the election in November.
The subject of teacher strikes will definitely be an issue at this delegate assembly, but it's doubtful the ASTA will go so far as to actually call for a strike. What may happen is that the delegates will call for a special session of the legislature and will also ask the National Education Association to come in and investigate Alabama's educational problems. Then, the delegates may also give the association's executive committee the power to call a strike if this should become necessary.
To make a contribution to this Duchesne Fund and send it to NEA headquarters or send it to your state executive secretary and he'll send it on in to give a day's pay. Or if you can't give a day's pay, give $5, $10, whatever dollars you can give, but you need to support Florida. Because if Florida wins, we all are going to win. You and I, a lot of us, are staying in the Holiday Inn up here. We'll stand in the Holiday Inn maybe, not necessarily because the people marched from Selma to Montgomery, but there were other people who stood up that these things might be a fact. So let us support Florida tomorrow. The executive secretary will give time for people who want to make contributions.
ASTA officials realize that a teacher walkout, to be effective, must have the backing of all of the state's teachers, Negro and white. And the AEA, which represents most white teachers, has already bypassed the issue. But through tomorrow, the 500 or so delegates here at the ASTA meeting will continue to express the growing concern over education in Alabama. And undoubtedly, they will no doubt call for a breakthrough in education, which would make a teacher strike totally unnecessary. This is Bob Inman, WSFA TV News, reporting.
This money has already been appropriated, but it's not enough. And if something is not done, we are going to be in a mell of a hash. Now, you can turn it around any way you want to. But we are trying to find teachers. I know one principal who, when We was trying to find teachers, and the fellow said, what kind you want? Said, one that has 2 eyes, 2 hands. It's gotten that bad. I don't blame teachers. So we're going to have to find this aid. So I want you to pass a resolution for this. According to the ratings of the states that put out by the NEA, Alabama is near the bottom or at the bottom, as Joe likes to say, of the totem pole, but whatever kind of pole it is, I don't care whether it's totem or otherwise, we're still at the bottom or near the bottom as it relates to the finances that are contributed for education in the state. Teacher salaries need to be increased, the pupil-teacher ratio needs to be decreased, and we need to get more help from aides, we need more materials, we need to have better working conditions, and teachers need to have the right to help to formulate some of the conditions and policies under which they work, and I agree with that.
In the Delegate Assembly of the Alabama State Teachers Association this afternoon, the group voted unanimously to support the Florida teachers in their sanctions program in Florida. The way that this resolution read indicates that support will be given to the Duchesne Fund for Teacher Rights of the National Educational Association. The resolution was passed to the effect that a certain amount or several amounts or any amount that any teacher would like to give to this fund for the benefit of this project, that this could be done.
The association also came out in favor of a special session of the legislature. How is this worded?
This resolution is stated this way. It asks the membership of ASTA to contact their local legislators and encourage or ask them to ask the governor to call a special session of the state legislature in order that they might meet and provide more funds for the 1968-69 scholastic year. We know that funds have been provided, but our Delegate Assembly feels that these funds are inadequate. And we feel that it is the responsibility of the legislators to do this, and we're asking our membership at the local level to ask their representatives and their senators to call upon the governor to do this.
The specific disagreements are discrimination. In most cases, our school boards have refused to hire Negroes in these positions, yet they're using federal money. As you know, Title I, I believe, operates more directly under the State Department of Education. And of course, our delegates are rather concerned about the fact that this discrimination continues to exist. And of course, you know that we have discrimination in the State Department of Education also. In fact, they still have their staff segregated. So we're going to take a survey, and we're going to find out all local school systems which are discriminated. And we're going to ask the federal government to investigate every one of them, and if necessary, then we'll take some more action.
With George Wallace a strong candidate for president, the American people, by their vote, may throw the presidential race into the House of Representatives. I here and now pledge my vote to George Wallace. Our incumbent Republican congressman has already announced he'll run again. I challenge him to make this same pledge of support to the people of Alabama. Will he support George Wallace, or will he vote like the Republican Party line in Washington tells him to?
$10,077 twice, $10,077 three times. Sold to Jim. What is your name there? Yeah. And it's sold.
Once again, what was the name of the purchaser? Albert Hotel Company.
Mr. Gamble, what is your plans to do with the building?
This sale has resulted in the Albert Hotel Company now owning title to both the land and the building, and there are no present plans. We'll decide within the near future whether to sell the entire building and land, demolish the building, or exactly what development will be done. But as of this time, there are no definite plans.
I guess we were the only one at this point that was really interested enough to apply. This is the only way I could reason for it, because, well, Lowndes County applied for separate housing, and of course they did it approximately the same time that Wilcox County did. However, we were funded. Lowndes County this year has been added to the Wilcox County program. I've given other areas of the state copies of our applications, proposal. However, they hadn't worked out a program yet in housing. I think we applied first. I think this is what you could boil it down to.
Some difficulty.
One result of declining agricultural employment is that the former tenant or farm worker not only loses employment, but he also loses a place in which to live. The Department of Agriculture has predicted that 2,000 farms will go out of operation in Alabama this year. This will mean an increased need for housing. The 1964 agricultural census indicates that in the 16-county area, the highest tenancy rates among non-whites were in Dallas, Sumter, Bullock, and Lowndes counties, all over 57% of the total non-white farm population, and that farm tenants in these counties are losing their farms at a rapid rate. Housing data shows Lowndes County has no public housing units.
Here, and my family's with me, and we're looking forward to a great day.
Which of the sessions on nuclear, the governor's conference?
Yes, that's right. We're most interested in urban problems. We're like most of the states in the South. We have a transition now of our population from rural toward urban, and we have many, many problems. I think this is true all over the nation now.
Governor Wallace will be here Tuesday. Do you think he can make any inroads among the governors?
I don't know about the governors. I think he's playing primarily to the people, and he seems to be doing real well there.
Any other national political aspirations that you look for? The advance men for Humphrey are supposed to be in town and so on?
I haven't heard this and don't know about it, but I would anticipate that the Southern Conference and also the National Conference next month will be filled with presidential politics this year.
Mr. Watson's question was relative to the 2 fish kills recently on the Tombigbee River and whether or not there are any plans at the present time to implement the power authority of the Water Improvement Commission in this area. The sesquicentennial year in Alabama marks a milestone in the rich historical heritage of our state. And it provides us an excellent opportunity for Alabama to call attention to our natural beauty, our abundance of natural resources for industrial and economic progress, and our people. I'm sure this commission, with the able help of our Bureau of Publicity and Information, will play a vital role in formulating and executing plans for this observance. But to be successful, our celebration must be the work of every Alabamian. I urge every citizen, every civic organization, every community to become involved with this 150th anniversary. I hope that industries, schools, businesses, churches, and historical associations will lend their support to the Commission in developing sesquicentennial projects. The possibilities for projects are limitless, ranging from historical festivals and pageants to cultural events. Now, we'll say that biologists, if that's the name for them, from the Water Improvement Commission and also from the Department of Conservation, have been there following both instances within a matter of a few hours, made an investigation, have rendered preliminary reports to all interested parties, giving their opinion as to the cause of the kill. The Water Improvement Commission, of course, has the authority under the law to take further action. You're aware of this, I think. Court proceedings, a suit for damages, including not only the value of the fish killed, but punitive damages against the wrongdoer or the responsible party for it. Of course, there's also talk now of strengthening the power of the Water Improvement Commission following this, and this is a natural result, and perhaps it does need strengthening. I don't know. That'll be a matter for legislative determination when the legislature next meets. I have expressed my concern many times about the efforts of plaintiffs in cases which are pending in courts in Alabama, both the federal courts and the 3-judge panel, about following the Supreme Court decision in what we know as the Kent County case,
in doing away with freedom of choice and requiring something in lieu of it, such as mandatory attendance zones. I think our opinion, as stated to you at a press conference a month ago, was in line with the testimony according to the news reports taken in Judge Johnson's court yesterday, to the effect that mandatory attendance zones would destroy the public school system in Alabama, because the people are simply not going to participate, have their children attend school under these conditions.
There has been a great deal of publicity in the last year or more concerning the Public Service Commission that operates here in Montgomery, that's the regulatory agency of our state. A lot of criticism. There was a hearing last week, as you know, with employees that had been discharged, some their contention without reason. Our Legislative Council decided unanimously today that this was an area of study that we should investigate, that we should look into the consequences without any charges against anyone. We're not making any charges. We're just saying that there is apparently room for some improvement in the Public Service Commission, and we're going to study it. The entire council is going to act as a committee of one to look into the operation of the Public Service Commission and to make recommendations to the next legislature.
What do you feel will come out of this study? You think some real good recommendations or changes will come?
John, I am confident that the council will meet its responsibilities. There have been several suggestions proposed. I wouldn't attempt to try to suggest what the entire council is going to do. One suggestion has been to increase the membership of the Public Service Commission, 3 to 5 to 7. I am as one member of the council, I can only speak for myself, and I'm confident that something probably needs to be done to protect the interests of the people of Alabama, and I think that we'll meet that responsibility.
And I think you'll find this to be accurate. The Alabama State College alone in Alabama has had to meet as mandatory the new high standards of the Southern Association. To do that, just some 18 months ago, the college had to reduce its enrollment by something like 800 students. That's within the last 5-year period.
What is your present enrollment?
Our present enrollment is 1,842. This summer there are about 12.
What was it before that reduction?
Well, prior to that, it was 24.24. Now, these are all equated full-time figures. By the time we were accredited a year ago, a little better than a year ago, it was back to 1,600 in round figures.
The total reversions to the general fund plus a balance forward on October 1 of 1967, of course, makes up the $7.5 million surplus which we have today. The balance on September 30 exceeds the anticipated balance by some $4 million. And if revenues continue to increase at the rate they have, then of course we'll be able to pay the appropriation in full with the conditional appropriation that we announced some weeks ago for the teachers' pay raise without any proration being necessary. We are very optimistic now that we will be able to pay the appropriations from the Special Educational Trust Fund, including the conditional for the teachers' salaries in full during this fiscal year. The total disbursements for the last fiscal year, including encumbrances, were $60,152,213.22, leaving a balance on September 30 at the close of the fiscal year of $7,594,205.49 in the state's general fund. Of even greater interest to us is the fact that appropriations for the last fiscal year were $62,147,762.35. And the total disbursements, the figure I've already given you, of $60,152,213.22. These are total in reversions to the general fund of $1,995,549.13. For any purpose unless you are prepared for it and completely prepared. And so it's just completely anticipatory and conjectural to comment about a special session now, except to say that we have an open mind on it, and we'll take action which we think to be the most effective to deal with the problem when the full situation is presented. I'm very pleased to announce today that effective October 16, the pay ranges of all merit system classifications not affected by statutory ceilings will be. The effect of this action will mean that most state employees will receive salary increases of approximately 5%. I'm most grateful to the members of the State Personnel Board who, at my request, unanimously approved this action at their regular meeting held earlier today. We did not anticipate that such an adjustment would be possible before 1969. However, the financial condition of the state at the close of the fiscal year was such that this meaningful pay raise can be granted at this time. I've long been impressed by the dedication and competency of our merit system employees. They are the today, Mr. Frank Cox, who is president of the Employees Association of the state. And Frank, do you want to say anything at this time?
Yes, Sir Governor, I would like to say that this is the first time that state employees have received a salary increase during a biennium, and certainly it's an
to make state government work. I would hope that this announcement today gives assurance to the employees of our interest and concern for them, and I know that we can expect their continued cooperation and understanding as we work together in giving the people of Alabama the type government they deserve.
The next 5 years to raise $30 million of it, 3 to 5 years, $30 million of it from private sources, $72 million from over the next 10 years from private sources. Then the rest of it to come in increases from the legislature and from the federal agencies and the major foundations. Now, when we say private sources, we mean the smaller foundations, corporations, individuals, alumni, families, etc. We anticipate that we will have about 17,000 students here within that 10-year period. Now, it depends on how fast we develop these graduate programs and how fast Huntsville and Birmingham develops. We've got a pretty high standard now for the students that we're accepting. We'd like to go higher, but we want to assume our responsibility to as many young people. We want to be sure they can get in college. But any student that we take today can do the academic work here. The student may not do the work, but it's not our fault.
Mr. Vance, what do you attribute to the light turnout in Tuesday's election?
Well, of course, this day in Alabama, it came at the time of the tragic death of Mrs. Wallace. We don't know exactly what effect that had on the turnout. This is an off year as elections go in Alabama. And I think a combination of these two things, perhaps including also the great interest in national affairs as distinguished from local affairs during recent weeks and the many things that have been going on the national scene, all of these things contributed in a little lighter turnout than we customarily have had. There was, however, a total of 538,079 votes cast in the primary.
Do you think one of the reasons for the light turnout was the fact that some of the candidates have not made the main issues clear?
Well, I don't really believe that the method of campaigning by various candidates had as much to do with it as these other tremendous factors that entered into the situation. This has been a year in which there's not quite as much interest as in some election years and in times gone by, but I think it's more a product of these other circumstances than it is a matter of the campaigning techniques of the candidates.
About what percentage of the registered voters do you think actually got out and cast their ballot last Tuesday?
I would say slightly over a third. Of course, we have to approximate that because we don't know from day to day what the exact total is, but approximately a third of the registered voters. Well, of course, there'll be a runoff in the United States Senate race between Lieutenant Governor Allen and Congressman Selden. There will be a congressional runoff in Congressman Selden's old congressional race where Representative Rick Manley and Mr. Walter Flowers will have a runoff. For the presidency of the Public Service Commission, there'll be a runoff between Mr. Owen and Mr. Connor. For Democratic National Committeeman between Mr. Goodwin and Mr. Metcalf, and then in 4 of the delegate places for delegate to the National Convention, there will be runoffs.
When I heard this, I immediately contacted Congressman Selden and Congressman Nichols and asked them to see what they could find out about it. In fact, before I heard this part, I heard that the general accounting officers were going to make an investigation of some OEO programs and other government programs. So I contacted Congressman Nichols and requested that he ask them to make an investigation of SWAPCA for the $400,000 loan that had been made to them last year. And also told him that we had an excellent OEO program going here, that we would be glad for them to investigate our program if they wanted to at the same time.
Well, we was able to hire 10 field specialists and the office personnel, co-op marketing specialists.
You can use the money when you get it.
Sure.
There's some talk about this loan. Some officials have called it illegal. You got anything to say on that?
Not at the present, I don't.
At first glance, it would seem that the newfound Negro voting strength in Selma went largely for naught in yesterday's election. But the large number of Negro voters who turned out at the polls may have given an indication of things to come in Selma.
Your Negro opponent got
a large number of Negro votes, even though one Negro leadership group endorsed you. Do you think this is any indication that you have lost contact with the Negro leadership you've been working with?
Well, I would think so. I would think the Negro community here threw down their own leadership that we had tried to have communication through, and I think they had represented the Negro community very well. I don't think they got them everything they wanted, but they'd seen a lot of improvements made in their area, paved streets, drainage, work programs, and things like this, and they voted some 2950 out of 3,200 votes for this Reverend Anderson, who wants no contact with the white community or responsibility, and a very radical type individual. And I think they threw down their own leadership, and I don't know where they stand today.
What effect does this have on the city's relationship with the Negro community?
Well, I think the Negro community is without leadership in a sense. They say, as Reverend Anderson put it, they would never support a segregationist mayor, and that he wanted me to understand that, and the news media and so forth. And but as far as without leadership, we'll continue to do the programs that we've been doing to aid the entire community, whether it be the Negro community or white community. We need to make much improvement here, paved streets, drainage programs, better employment for all the races, and we'll continue forward. And the ramblings and babblings of the Reverend L.L. Anderson doesn't bother me one bit. I didn't get the Negro vote, I got the white vote, but I'm the mayor of all the people of Selma, and my policies will be the same the coming administrations it was the past.
Do you feel like you have a chance to win this runoff election against a white candidate?
I feel that I have an excellent chance in the event that I can get some white votes, and we have a strategy plan to do that, and I believe the white community will be receptive because I plan to establish an advantage for both races, both white and colored, which there are some inadequacies in both sections. And I believe that I will get the support of the white. If not the majority, I'll feel that I'll get enough to do some good.
I feel like there was going to be a runoff. All the time I feel like there's going to be a runoff. And I will certainly work hard for re-election.
Do you plan to ask for any Negro votes in your section of town, or will you depend entirely on white votes this time?
I won't get I ask for all the votes I can get, but it seems like they did vote me just because I was white.
Do you feel like there's racism on both sides?
Well, not any. Well, it could be a certain amount, I would say, yes.
You think the lines have been drawn as far as block voting in Selma, and you don't expect those to change?
Yes, sir. They're not going to change. It's definitely block vote.
There is one thing that yesterday's voting in Selma did show, and that's the fact that whites are still voting for whites, and Negroes, for the most part, are still voting for Negroes. Negro candidates in Selma and elsewhere in the South are going to continue to have a hard time getting elected where Negro voters are in the minority. But the signs of change are there. The hard lines of block voting are beginning to bend. And possibly in the not-too-distant future, Negro voters will decide that, for the time being at least, block voting is not the answer to their problems. Bob Inman, WSFA TV News, reporting from Selma. Why did most Negroes break with the Voters League and vote for Anderson?
Well, this group, the Dallas County Voters League, there was detected a certain amount of deceptiveness, and it just created a discrepancy right at the last minute, and somewhat had the people's mind somewhat confused.
Do the people think that the Voters League has sold them out by endorsing Mayor Smitham?
That was the general concept of I would say, the majority of people.
Do you think the white and Negro communities in Selma are any closer together than they were 4 years ago?
Definitely so. Selma has been through a complete transition, and I think the conditions here, although they are not 100%, but I feel that there have been quite a few mass improvements made.